this Halloween themed ASMR video. It's not gonna be like super Halloweeny or anything. I just wanted to show you some spooky books that I have, and maybe I'll read some stories from one of the books at the end of the video if I have time. And yeah, I mean, you probably can't see it at all, but I am wearing a vampire shirt just to get in the spirit of the season. But yeah, I just wanted to show you some books that I think are sort of in the spirit of Halloween. I love Halloween, I love horror, and I love books, so this kind of was the easy choice, I guess. But yeah, let's just get right into it. The first book I wanted to show you is this book. It's called Anatomica. It's a book about anatomy and sort of like the history of medicine through the ages. It's got a lot of very beautiful pictures, very beautiful art from all sorts of periods, and it's just very, sorry, it's not really horror themed or anything, but it's kind of spooky. And you see on the back, there's this picture of God, and it's a very big book, so I won't be able to show you all of the pictures, but I can maybe show you one or two. There's all sorts of chapters about different parts of the anatomy. This one, for instance, is about the eyes, and these apparently are illustrations of eyes. I'm not a doctor, I couldn't tell you what part exactly, but yeah. Oh, this one is kind of spooky. It's about the tongue, and there's just this guy who's not doing great apparently. Yeah, I mean, I am very glad to live in a time period where dentists exist. And you also have drawings of like bigger parts of the body, as you can see here. Yeah, it's a little graphic, so I'm not going to be dwelling too much on it, but it is very cool. And it's funny sometimes because in illustrations that are, I assume, intended for like medical practitioners or students, but sometimes there's a very autistic element to it. For instance, in this picture, it almost looks like a painting of like just a person from behind. I don't know. It is a very cool book, and I highly recommend checking it out if you can. It is in French, but honestly the illustrations are what matters the most, and I really enjoyed it. monsters from all over the world. It usually has like a drawing and a story with it. For instance, this one is a monster from Chile and Argentina, and it's called John John. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's like a bat witch. It's kind of cool. So yeah, every time there's the monster, and where it's from, and a little illustration to go with it. And I love like books that talk about monsters. I love monsters. I love illustrations of monsters, and I love like books that kind of look like manuals or like a bestiary. That's just my favorite thing ever. So another reason why I absolutely love this book. It's amazing, and I love spooky stories. I'm not going to be reading one from this book because it is in French and I don't think many people would understand. But I am going to show you next. This book looks less cool. It's much smaller. It's the Museum of Hidden Beings. It's about mythological beings of Icelandic folk tales. And once again, it's kind of a bestiary, but it's more like some Icelandic folk tales or stories, and then an illustration that goes with it, as you can see. But the story doesn't necessarily talk about the monster as such. Sometimes it's more like, once this girl saw a ghost. Sorry about the background noise. I don't know if you can hear, but there's some noise outside, but hopefully you cannot hear it and it's all fine, but you never know. But yeah, I just wanted to read you some stories from this book because I think it's pretty cool. I love like ghost stories or stories about monsters, and it's pretty seasonal. So I'm going to be picking some of them because the book is long and some of the stories are longer than others. But first I'm going to be reading you the story of the Mori, or ghost. Okay, here we go. Shortly before the turn of the 20th century, a young girl travelled from Reykjavik to the nearby hot springs of Logar to do her washing. While at her work there, she felt an unpleasant presence and became sick at heart and nauseous. She looked around and was startled by the sight of a spectre or ghost crouching over a crock that stood on the ground close to her. Although frightened, she observed the sight before falling unconscious to the ground, where she lay until people came to look for her. When she came to, she told of what she had seen. It then came to light that the crock had contained human entrails. A doctor had dissected a corpse and wanted to have the entrails washed before inspection. The girl described the ghost in such vivid detail that the dead man could be recognized from her description. Few people knew of the presence of the entrails there. The source for this tale was an inhabitant of Reykjavik who was familiar with this matter. Not really well written or anything, but that's kind of what I like about it. It really sounds like some urban legend or tale or like rumor that is being spread around in Reykjavik or wherever, and also very mysterious and leaves room for imagination, because like, who is the inhabitant of Reykjavik and why are they familiar with this matter? You don't know, but you can imagine, and that's arguably what's the scariest in horror stories, is what you imagine. So I kind of like that about this book. But since we have a little more time together, I will be reading you another story now, and it is going to be, let me think. I will be reading you the story of the Orma, or giant worm. Now, first of all, I will show you the picture. Here it is. Here it is. This is the giant worm. Now, it is said that a girl who lived in either Famur or Dagverðarnes in Skorradalur wanted to see whether it was true that placing a slug or lingworm on a piece of gold would cause the slug and the gold underneath it to grow. She took a slug and placed it on a gold ring that she kept in her linen chest. But when she came back to look at the chest, it was close to bursting from the worm and gold within. The girl took fright and threw the chest and everything in it into the lake. The worm that grew on this girl's gold is the great worm that has occasionally been seen in Lake Skorradalsvatn. Its size is so great that residents on the north side of Skorradalur have been able to see Dragafell on the south side of the valley, under the worm's arch as it extends above the surface of the water, despite both its head and its tail being submerged. This has occurred only twice, once before the Black Death plague, and once before the smallpox plague. Pretty spooky, and also very open to interpretation and imagination, and that's what's cool about it as well. Now, we might have time for a final story, and I am still deciding which one I want to tell you. There are so many good ones, and I had decided on a couple, but now I'm hesitating, and also I cannot find the right page anymore, obviously, because that's what I do, and because what is more relaxing than hearing me look for the page? Well, you know what, I'm just gonna pick one at random, and here we have the Fleitharmus mouse needs silver, some say gold, in order to survive, and it only comes ashore if great tidings are afoot. Good fortune awaits those who succeed in capturing a tied mouse. They must immediately place it in a waterproof container, pour seawater over it, and put a silver or gold coin in the container. A day later, another coin of equal value will have appeared alongside it. The coin that was placed in the container is then removed, and this procedure is repeated once every day. One must remember to change the creature's seawater daily. This is kind of a gremlin-like story, but it sounds like there's probably some drawbacks to that, because like, what if you don't change the mouse's water? What happens then? Is it just that the gold stops coming? Or you cast, does the mouse die? Is the gold like poison or cursed, or not real gold and disappears? Or maybe all the gold that the mouse has made for you suddenly disappears. I don't know. I don't know enough about Icelandic folk tales to tell you, but it's very mysterious, and I am going to say goodnight to you on that